Work session this September 28th, 2021. Today we will have a presentation by the Public Services Agency for the 23-24 biennial budget cycle. I'll turn things over to you, Tanks.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I want to say greetings, Madam Chair, the district commissioners, county manager, and county attorney. On behalf of Public Services Agency, I want to thank you all for this opportunity. My 30 years with Cobb County, I've never witnessed department heads publicly participate at this level in the budget. It's a reflection of the leadership of you, Madam Chair, and our county manager, and the courage of this Board of Commissioners. In preparation for our presentations today, I asked the leaders of their departments to key in on 3 points. I asked them to tell your story, or in other words, tell the state of your department. Tell your need, and then tell the cost of your needs. So you should hear their stories, the state of the departments, their needs, and the cost of their needs. We did have one last-minute pivot in our presentations. Regrettably, report that Dr. Jenkins is out with COVID. He tested positive. But we have a very capable Ms. Kimberly White, who will be presenting for sustainability. I'm quite sure she's very excited. Our order of presentations today will be first senior services, then libraries, then our Cobb Extension Office. And Madam Chair, if you so desire at that point, we can take a break after those 3. It'll be the board's call.
Okay.
Then immediately after the break, we'll kick back off with parks, sustainability, and Janine, our elections director, will be our closer. And if time permits, I'll make a few closing comments. So without any further delay, I ask Dr. Jatan Gibson to come on up to the podium.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
I am Jatan Gibson, Director of Cobb Senior Services. And I first want to say thank you to the Board of Commissioners, County Manager, County leadership, and all others who have supported Cobb Senior Services during my time here and previously. So following what Director Tanks shared with you, I'll give an overview of senior services. One thing I want to share is that we've made some changes to some of our publications and some of the things that we share in the community. And one we are giving out, and I want to make sure that we all have one of these. If you don't have one, they are available and we have them for you. It gives a true overview of senior services. So today, my presentation, is it up? Okay, we're ready to go. Good. We have 7 centers housed in 6 buildings. They're throughout the county, and our seniors are open to go to any of the centers that they would like to go to. Many of the seniors go online, they look for their services there, the classes. If they don't see them in one center, they can go to the other. That's how flexible and versatile we are. What population do we serve? Programs and services for the 55 and older population. That's where we are in Cobb Senior Service. If you are age 55 and over, you can have access to services and programs that we offer in senior services. Our mission answers the question, why senior services? We want to improve the quality of life by promoting healthy aging through 3 avenues: education, socialization, and services. So remember those 3, socialization, education, and services. So let's review some quick facts about seniors in Cobb County. There are several listed, but we'll just look at a few of them for the sake of time. Let's look at the 60-year-old population in Cobb County. It is the fastest growing population in Cobb County. Take note, 60 years of age and older is the fastest growing population in Cobb County. Another interesting fact about the state of Georgia, we have now surpassed the state of Florida for retirement. Georgia has been voted as the #1 state for retirement. What does that mean for us and seniors? It's very important because the seniors are here. Florida exceeds us in cost of living. So Georgia presented as a better state for retirement. The other thing that you would like to know about the 55-plus population is they now control 70% of all personal wealth. 55-plus population in the United States control 70% of the population's wealth. So the last one on this slide that I will share, again, these will be shared later, is the health impact of loneliness and how it equates to you health-wise for a person over the age of 55 who experienced loneliness. It's equivalent to smoking 15 cigarettes a day. If you can just imagine a person being lonely for an extended period of time, how does that affect them physically? Research shows that it equates to 15 cigarettes a day. That is very important, and that answers the reason why senior services. Why? What do we address in senior services? So during COVID, we realized our impact, and we knew if we didn't open the doors, that seniors literally would knock down the doors to get in the center. They literally will knock down the doors to get in the center. And we've moved forward with that and taken it to another level to say, even if you're not in the center, we would like to address and help some of your service needs and your wants. So let's briefly discuss some of the challenges and opportunities that we face in senior services. I think all challenges are also opportunities. One we have listed is the compensation for our instructors. Our industry standards, as far as what we're paying our instructors, we're not matching current industry standards. So we are being challenged with recruiting instructors and retaining them for many of our programs. How are we going to address that? We've worked with many different organizations in the county, and they've actually become our competitors, churches, other assisted living facilities, the gyms, especially for our exercise instructors. So that's one of the challenges that we're having with offering programming. We also need appropriate staff to meet these needs. One of the other challenges, as well as an opportunity for us, is to become accredited by a national organization, which is called the National Council on Aging. I think there's 2 counties that are currently accredited by the National Council on Aging, and it would be wonderful for Cobb to join that rank. It increases our services, it improves our overall operations, and then we are able to compete for grants on a different level because we have something that's almost called a gold stamp. In the changing of the population, currently in Cobb, we also have to be mindful of our baby boomers. Okay, don't raise your hands when I give these dates, okay? It's for people, the baby boomers are born from 1946 to 1964, which means if you're 57 or 75, between those two, you're a baby boomer. There's a hand. 2 hands. There's more. So that is a population that is part of that, as I spoke of earlier, that 60-year-old age group that's growing. And in Cobb County, we currently have, over the age of 55, a shocking number of 175,000 plus people in Cobb County are over the age of 55. 175,000. And that became even more prevalent during the time of COVID when we were trying to address the aging population and the vaccine. So how do we meet their needs? How do we expand our services? How do we have a center without walls, meaning 175,000 people in Cobb County, we could not actually address that many people in our centers. So what can we do to reach past the walls of the centers we have and also provide services to people over the age of 55? We will look at expanding our personnel. So this slide is a draft of our current organizational chart. But the focus should be on the yellow or the highlighted areas. Those are the 6 positions that we are proposing to add to our current staff. The first one is a division manager. This person will have oversight of the centers. The centers currently have individual managers, but a division manager would provide additional leadership, professional development, and overall growth in diverse populations and recruitment for our centers. This person will have a greater focus on helping us to expand outside of the centers into the community. The second one is a custodian for one of our centers. We do not have a custodian at one of our particular centers, and it is actually a requirement based on some of our current grant funding. An administrative specialist that will report to the Director of Senior Services and provide assistance to the Director of Senior Services as well as the Deputy Director. We currently have that role being filled by an HR generalist, and it's becoming overwhelming because of many of the reporting and record keeping that she has to do on top of trying to assist us. And then the fourth one is a grant development specialist. We currently have a large grant that augments a lot of our funding from the county so that we can continue many of the services that we have for our seniors. A grant development specialist would be a person to seek additional grants as well as help with current grant reporting, which is major, and we have to follow a lot of the guidelines and rules from the Atlanta Regional Commission, which is where we get our largest funding from. Then in our care management, there are two positions that we're asking for in care management: a care manager and an administrative specialist in care management. Our caseload per care manager is now exceeding 100. And then we're developing wait lists because of the current need in seniors in Cobb County. So what do we look like as far as our current staffing? And I just highlighted 2021 for the sake of time again. We have 74 positions filled, 18 vacant. And of those 18 vacant, 6 are full-time and 12 are part-time. We can attribute a lot of the vacancies to things, as we know, the workforce that we currently are recruiting from, our pay scale, and then how are we retaining staff that we currently have. We've noticed a 5 to 8 month almost time frame to fill certain positions. Some positions are longer to fill and some take 3 to 4 months. And we are reposting positions, some of them 2 and 3 times to actually get a valid pool. So again, that's some of the workforce and some of the challenges we must consider. We must also consider our succession planning as we approach retirement. We have 4 people eligible to retire as of today, and that would be a wealth of information lost in senior services as we hear the term institutional knowledge that would be gone if they retired. The hybrid retirement, which in senior services, we have 26 people currently. That, just a brief overview of that, that's people that have started working in Cobb since 2010. And many of them are in our management positions, and they are the ones that are seeking opportunities. And so we're again saying, hold your breath. Hopefully they will stay with us because they've also gained a lot of knowledge, and we would like to retain them. So what do we do as far as recruitment to fill those positions that I mentioned earlier? And then how do we retain the people that we currently have? I would also like to take a moment for staff that are watching and staff that are present to say thank you, and to our leader, thank you again for the work that you currently are doing and the flexibility that you have. Now we'll switch to our budget. So the next few slides, we will talk about our personnel, operating, and capital. You will see this slide again at the end just as a refresher of what we're addressing. Again, it's the personnel, operating, and the capital for Cobb Senior Services. The capital is actually a first-time ask, and we are excited because we will use it for our bus replacement. The year that I came in, the county allocated funding for us to purchase 10 new buses, and it was exciting. The seniors were excited, and everybody wanted to get on the white bus. That's all we heard was, let me ride the white bus. So we thank you for that, but there's still more work to be done. And I want to thank Fleet as well, because we've done a lot of work in our transportation area. So in our personnel, I just mentioned we are asking for 6 positions. And what is that increase for us? The change is 15% overall for our proposed 23 budget. And that will come off in 24 because we're only asking for 6 positions, but it does affect our operating cost as well for items needed for those 6 positions. And that's a description of those 6 positions. Again, this will be shared later, but our total for the 6 positions that we were asking was $421,000, and that includes fringe as well as their salary. Our operating budget, we have a few changes there, and we have the increases because of again, the 6 positions that we have. We will add materials that they're needing, the operating budget for the centers. We've gone through and spoken with the managers at the centers. We've had great input from them, and so these are some of the proposals that we're putting forward for the operating budget for proposed 23. It will decrease in 24 again because a lot of the funding that we will need for those new 6 positions in 23, if granted, we will not have those same expenses in 24. Okay. And this again gives a little bit more detail on what the total would be for our operating budget and a more description on some of the repairs, some of the replacements and software that we will need in Cobb Senior Services. And that's, our total for that is $149,000. So this picture just kind of shows you where we are with our capital replacement, which, as I stated earlier, we would use for our buses. Just 2 of the buses that we had a couple of pictures of. We do work with Fleet to try to get some of these things fixed, but there are some buses that we really need to replace. And we also want to make sure that we can sustain the fleet that we have. Okay. In our capital, we're asking, again, you'll see a 100% change because this is our first time asking for capital in our budget. We will use 540 of those $640,000 for 9 buses. So we're looking to replace 9 buses, and we do follow guidelines from our grant funder. There are limitations on how many miles our buses can reach and the age. So we do follow that as well. And then we would like to replace our freezer, which holds all of our Meals on Wheels food. And the inventory can reach up to $30,000 at any point. This is the freezer that is in the wellness building. And I think it was there when it was a supermarket. So it's pretty old. But property works very well with us and try to maintain it so that we don't lose our inventory. We have come very close a couple of times, but that's where we would put our capital, be in our bus replacement and also in our freezer replacement at wellness. So this is, again, the justifications and the description for those 2 costs for the buses and for the freezer replacement. Back to our overall, our total ask in the proposed budget for 23 is there at $5,980,000, and we again some of that came off in the 2024 because of personnel taken care of in 23 and some of our accountable items and other items that we will have in that first year. So that is the end of my presentation. If there are any questions.
Thank you, Jatan. We appreciate your presentation today. Do commissioners have any questions? I saw Commissioner Burrow first, and then I'll come to you, Commissioner. Okay, she's deferring to you, Commissioner Richardson.
Well, thank you. Really quick question. You kind of touched on it, but
Are part-time, and it's difficult to fill. A lot of them are drivers. So it's a little difficult to fill those, and then when we do fill them, it's almost like you have 3 people come in, you have 2 people go out. And so we're trying to catch that number up, but that's where we're seeing it. Again, though, we are attributing a lot of it to the workforce. People aren't excited about getting a job anymore. I mean, they literally will ask us, how much are you paying? And, before that was almost a no-no. So once they hear, we don't get calls back, they don't answer the phone anymore, they won't come to the interview, so that's a larger part of it. And we just noticed that really after COVID.
Thank you.
Can you, what is interfund?
The interfund, that is the match and the subsidy for our ARC grant that the county gives
Okay.
us.
And then of the vacancies you have, are any of those, I guess, I know they're needed, but with the new positions you're asking for, could any of those vacancies be transferred to the specialist or the custodian or the ones that the new ones you're asking for at the centers?
No, ma'am, we're stretched pretty much to the nth with what we currently have. And then with those positions being open, even if those positions were filled, the 6 positions that we are requesting would still be needed.
Okay, thanks.
Are there any other questions? Then piggybacking off of that, and I know there's a desire to not include the org chart, but it's hard to put it in context unless we see the positions that are there, particularly if there's a request and an outstanding number of vacancies. And again, I know there are reasons why things are being presented as they are. It's just for me, even some other requests, if I have paper in front of me, I can go back and forth and ask, and it's difficult to be able to do that without that information. But that's a similar question to what I had. And also, with the vehicles, we know that's come to our attention a number of times, the poor condition of them. In one of the slides, it provided that there are FTA dollars available for the vehicles, but I presume there would still be some cost to the county. Is that a match that the county would have to provide for those vehicles, or is that
That was an
another
ask.
additional cost?
That was a full ask for the county for the $540,000. That would replace 9 buses. And that
Okay.
includes buying the bus and all the equipment that's needed for the buses.
Okay, so, I don't see DOT here, but I'd just be curious to know if that's something that could be supported with that, or even the allotment we get with the ARC.
It's different with 5311.
Okay.
Because we're over $500,000 in size, we don't get the same funding for buses that you would get if you were a county smaller than $500,000.
Okay.
For example, when I was in Cherokee and we were under $500,000, we were eligible for 5311 transportation funds for our ADA and paratransit, but because Cobb is so large, we don't get those funds.
Okay, thank you for explaining that. And then for ARC, I know we get some allotment through them for funds. Is that for other programs that couldn't be utilized for that? Okay.
Yes.
And this is not taking away from the need being there, just trying to be creative to see where we may have some
Correct.
other resources. Thank you for the presentation. There's some data I wish I had that I didn't see on the slide. When you talked about the spending power of seniors, I thought that was pretty impactful. And again, I'd have to go back to the slide. I don't have it in front of me, but just making the case, I thought it was, thank you. I thought it was helpful to see this data here, even speaking about the percentage of that population compared to all of our residents, and why this is becoming an increasing area of interest for us to be mindful of. Thank you.
Yes.
All right,
Thank you.
Appreciate it, your time. All right, next up, I see we have Helen Poyer with Cobb County Libraries.
Okay, well, good afternoon, Chairwoman, Commissioners, County Manager. Thank you for this opportunity to present our 23-24 biennial budget. This is a budget that will support our priorities of breaking down barriers to access, attracting and retaining staff, and also having an operating budget that will fulfill our mission and our vision. Next one. Our mission is to be that vital resource center in the community where all people have access to information they need, We also, looking at our vision, we want to move beyond being a traditional library by integrating technology and other vital resources that people need that will enrich their lives. So we're asking you to support our budget by investing in our people, our operation, and our mission and our vision. The American Library Association has an equity of access statement, and I'll just paraphrase. It says that all people, regardless of their background, their circumstances, all people should have access to information in a variety of formats. And we do have barriers in our county. So our budget, we are asking for a 34% increase in our budget. We're looking at our personnel, operation, and operating costs and our capital. Many factors went into developing this request. We looked at our we had patron input, library data, statistics. We looked at our 2019 five-year financial plan. That was to be a restorative budget, and we're not there yet. We also looked at the county's 2040 comprehensive plan that says libraries should provide equitable access to staff, to facilities, to materials that will enrich the lives of the people that we serve. We also looked at the state standards, and that serves as a guide to providing optimal service. And the next slide. We do have challenges. We do not have a full complement of staff. Our operating budget is not keeping pace with the cost to operate. And we have a facility plan that looks at where our facilities should be today and tomorrow. And we do have a library that is high performing, but it's very costly to operate. Our personnel, our most valuable resource, our personnel, they go above and beyond every day to serve. They faced a lot of challenges through the years, but they never give up. During the recession, we lost 76 positions, 76 people we had to say goodbye to. And we haven't gotten all of those people back. Our part-time people went from working 19 hours a week to 15 hours a week. So adding 34 positions, it will fill our vacancies, they'll fill our staffing voids and service gaps.
I'm sorry, Helen. Can you put that in context? You said you lost 76 positions during the recession. Are you talking about in 2011? Are you talking?
Right.
Okay.
And what happened was they became unfunded. And we
Okay.
lost an entire position. Our page position was totally eliminated.
And again, just hoping to put this in context, you lost 76 people out of a department of how many people?
It was 300, we had over 300 and some people at that time. Let's see, next,
Okay.
332.
Okay,
You'll see it on the next slide.
thank you. I'm sorry, we have another follow-up question.
Was that when we cut back the hours?
Right, it's all tied together.
Yeah, but.
And I'll
so
get to that
when
as
we
well.
went back to regular hours and a
We're not
couple of
able-
years ago, we added Sunday service, so were any of those?
I will show you that we're not back to the service hours that we had back in 2007, 2008. And it's all tied to the fact that we don't have staff.
Okay.
I think it's also important to note that we closed two libraries.
We consolidated.
We consolidated two
We
libraries,
consolidated.
so I think that also needs to be noted.
Right, and I'll actually show how we were able to get the positions for those libraries.
Thank you.
Up to that.
Sorry, I think you took us off guard when you mentioned 76 positions lost, so I apologize.
Yeah, I just, with the consolidation, how many employees were lost as a result of that, of the consolidation?
Well, that was a joining of two libraries, Ackworth and Kennesaw, so we combined staffing. And we were able to use some of our unfunded positions, the positions that we lost during the recession. We were able to convert some of those positions to get the staff that we needed for North Cobb and for Schweitzer, not Schweitzer, Sewell Mill.
And also the new North Cobb, but also Sewell Mill, we didn't close any libraries, so that was all new positions for Sewell Mill when it opened in
Right, it
17.
was larger staff area, community area, so we had to add staff. And again, we were able to use the staffing that we lost during the recession to convert to fund. Okay, next slide. Okay, it's kind of hard to see, but you can see in 2007, we had over 300 staff members. We're down, our staffing level is down 20%. We currently have 267 positions. We have 28 vacancies today, and 3 of those are branch managers. You can also see from the graph that our staffing level is not growing at the pace of the population. So it's harder for us to serve their information needs. And why is it important that we add staff? If I gave each of you a board book, and it's a board book that we usually give to a young child, if I gave you a wordless board book, I'm confident that each of you could tell a story from the pictures that you see. Your stories may be different, but you would be able to tell that story. Well, we have parents and we have adults who can't do that. And we do have programs in our libraries where our librarians, our library staff, give strategies to parents on how to read to their children. The first 3 years of a child's life, the brain develops rapidly, and that interaction with the parent is crucial in the development of the child. So we have LAPSIT programs for babies and parents. We have story times for the toddlers. We have 1,000 books before kindergarten. Again, it shows that exposing a child to at least 1,000 books before kindergarten helps in the development of their language skills. Summer reading, something that's been in libraries for years. You know, research shows that being involved in summer reading, your reading skills either are maintained or they are improved. We can go all the way up to adults where we have GED classes. The barrier is the fact that we don't have staff to expand these programs. These programs are done during the day, so we're not meeting the parents who are working during the day. We do not have evening and weekend programs. These literacy programs are all during the day.
Yeah.
So we are the bridge between people and information that they need to live, learn, work, and govern. We have 191 full-time equivalent. We're below state standards. Today, our staff are working very hard to meet the needs of the citizens. So one staff is serving over 2,800 citizens. Next. We do look at benchmarks. We tend to compete with the libraries that you see on the screen here. You see where we rank in the metro area. We took great pride through the years in attracting staff from not only the metro area but throughout the state of Georgia and outside, because we were known as being creative, innovative. We were the first to bring Vision to Learn into Cobb County, into a library in the state of Georgia. Working with senior services, we brought in falls prevention. Community and user engagement is a unit, a department, which is outreach. We were one of the first to really have an organized unit in our library. It's harder today. We're competing not only with the metro area library, but we're competing with retail and hospitality. And then we had a challenge during those years when we were on the chopping block to be cut. So people didn't want to take a risk on working at Cobb Library System. So we're hoping and looking forward to the Compton class to hopefully address some of those issues. Tony Hagler, and Director of Human Resources, showed some benchmarks, and for us it's the librarian too. This position requires that you have a master's in library science, that you have at least 2 years of experience, and that you're certified by the state of Georgia. For 10 months, we had a vacancy in this area. We opened it up twice, we offered it twice, and we were turned down. We actually went outside the state, offered it to someone in South Carolina. The individual came to Cobb County, said it was too expensive, the cost of living was too expensive in Cobb for the salary. So meeting all those requirements, having the master's, years of experience, certification, we can offer you a base salary of $43,000. And these are some of the positions. I'm not going to go through it. You will get a packet that will have some detailed information. I'll just point out that we are looking to add a custodian for the New Gritters Library, a fiscal tech to help manage some of the overload in our business office. The library division director, this was a position that became vacant due to a retirement, and it was the time that North Cobb Library was going to open. We used that position to get the manager for North Cobb. So we gave up the library division director to get a manager for North Cobb Regional Library. It's important that we get that position back. It's a position that oversees our community and user engagement. That's our web page, our virtual services, communication, outreach, the bookmobile, and this position also serves in the absence of the director. The librarian positions, again, they will be filling some of the voids that we have, providing reference, adult services, children's services, outreach, building community partnerships. And we can go to the next page. Another one that I'll bring out is the grant administrator. We've been working very hard to seek grants. We've been successful, but we really do need someone to help us with that. Going back up, the library services supervisor, for 7 years, Sweetwater Library has not had a manager. The South Cobb Region manager often goes to that facility to oversee some of the managerial tasks. And then the last one there, the part-time positions, we're asking for our part-time staff members to get to that 19 hours a week. Right now, they're at 18. We were able to, it was in 2018, 2019, when we received some contingency fund, and we were able to get them up to 18 hours. Our operating budget, we're asking for a 37%. We can anticipate increase in operating costs every year, and we just need a budget that will support the increase in costs. So the majority of our request is just to support our contracts, our leases, our library materials. We're also asking for one time for color, printer, and copiers, and this is something that our patrons ask for all the time. We're also asking to replace broken equipment, adding some computers, and updating some software. And Commissioner Burrow, you were asking about our hours. Today we're at 802 service hours a week. We used to be over 1,000. And again, this is a barrier because people do not have access to our people, to our resources, our collections, our computers. It's a barrier. And, we would like to get staffing so that we can expand our service hours to the public. 11% of our budget does go toward our library materials. You can see in 2008, we were close to 14%. Our materials, we're in the material business, and we really saw during the pandemic when we shut down how valuable library services are to the public. We were able to smoothly transition from in-person to remote access. Digital content is expensive, so we had to move funds from our print collection to our digital collection to support the demand during this time. Our students could still have access using their school ID. They had access to our digital collection. People could still search for job, apply for jobs. Digital content for us, for a library, based on the publisher's model, we pay 30% more than what you would pay for a title, and it's metered. So just like a parking meter, so at a certain pace, we have to put more on that title, and it's expensive. Having to move our print budget funding, some of the print funding over to digital, creates a hole in providing print collection for the public. So you can wait 15 weeks to receive a bestseller. And people are patient, but we would like to make it more available. And this shows we're just slightly above state standards for budget allocation to materials. And again, we look outside of Georgia. You can see how we compare to others. We have a collection size of about 1.1 million. We pay $1.87 per cap. So that's what we pay per cap for library materials. You see our budget at 1.4 million. You can see how we compare to the others in the metro area library. And I will say that 57% of our population have library cards. Gwinnett has 53%, DeKalb has about 23%, and Fulton has about 75%. They just added all their schools, their students onto their, very much like PASS, they have access to the collection. Okay. Computer service is essential in our library, even though the census shows that over 90% of Cobb residents have computers in the home, have access to internet. A lot of people, that 10% don't, but even the 90% use our computers. It's an essential service. People are searching for jobs, applying for government assistance, or just simply using the internet to maybe connect with family members. And I'm going to tell you a story about Geraldine. Geraldine was unemployed. She came to the library almost every day. Staff showed her how to use the computer, how to manipulate the mouse. So she searched for jobs, filled out applications, and then the staff didn't see her for a while. And they were all hoping that she had got a job. Geraldine came in one day, and she had an elderly woman with her. She introduced her as her neighbor, who was 80 years old, and she ran into her at the local food depot, and the woman, the neighbor, was really distraught because she was low on funding, low on money, and she was running out of food stamps, and she was told that she had to renew her SNAP account online, and she didn't have a computer or internet access. So Geraldine says, I know where you can go. I know who will help you. Geraldine brought her to the library. The staff helped her sit down at the computer, get to the right website, and they left happier. A great burden was off of the elderly woman's shoulder. And Geraldine did get a job. And the next time they saw Geraldine was Geraldine and the neighbor came to a food drive sponsored by the library. So we are asking in our budget to add 150 Chromebooks with hotspots that can be checked out so people can check them out and use them at home or in school. And again, I'm not going to go over all these. Most of these are just to have adequate funding to support the increase in cost. We are asking to add, though, new Hoopla, which is being asked often by the public. You can stream videos and ebooks and music. Again, supporting our leases and our utilities. Okay. In 2009, the county sold the Merchants Walk Library for $1.3 million and signed a 20-year lease. Part of the money went to build out space at the Park Air Shopping Center, and now that library is called East Cobb. It's 16,800 square foot facility. It's one of our highest performing libraries, but it is one of the costliest to run, to operate. When you see this slide, you see East Cobb. The green is what we pay in lease. Our base lease is $17,000 a month. When you add on the community area maintenance, that adds about another $10,000. So monthly, we pay $27,000 towards this lease. We just received notice that the lease will be going up to $18,000. We don't know what the other fees will be. And again, you can see East Cobb is costly, and it is one of our busiest libraries. We looked at the demographics of East Cobb and of Sewell Mill. And East Cobb, you have your more traditional library users. They like to come in, browse the shelves, sit down and read the newspapers. They attend all the programs. Sewell Mill, they like the creative space. They use the computers. They're more in and out. So they are different communities, and the services are different. So we do have a 10-year facility plan that's reviewed by our trustees and library administration. The facility plan recommends that we start the planning to relocate East Cobb out of the Park Air Shopping Center. Anytime Library. This is a convenient little library that can be placed in any location in an area where it's underserved, where we don't have a library. But in talking with Dr. Gibson, Senior Services, we thought this Anytime Library would be a great service for the senior services. So we are looking at having this library at Senior Services. It holds over 300 titles. You can check out, return, you can pick up holds. And again, it's a convenience, but it works well for people who may not have easy access to one of our facilities. And our senior population, again, we can do more to reach that population. And again, we're asking for $1.5 million to begin the planning for the East Cobb Library, and we're asking $72,000 for the Anytime Library. And so again, you see we're asking for this increase in our budget. In 2008, the Carl Vinson Institute of University of Georgia conducted a study on service evaluation and economic impact on the metro area libraries. For every dollar input into Cobb, $3.97 is produced. So the libraries are an investment. The library is no longer a storehouse for materials, but a place for people who have real-life issues, such as employment and food insecurity, literacy. We are transforming our community, and this budget reflects a responsible level of spending for the next 2 years. Thank you. Any questions? Oh, can't forget this. We have an awesome staff. It's a real privilege and honor to work with this team. They go above and beyond every day. They're just true public servants who are committed and dedicated, and I love working with them. And the next slide, and the final slide, we want to thank you on behalf of the people who contributed to this presentation and our entire staff. We want to thank you for the time that you gave us.
Thank you. I truly appreciate that presentation. It was informative. Going to see if commissioners have any questions. Commissioner Sheffield.
Excuse me. At the top of the presentation, you mentioned that there were barriers within the county. Outside of a shortage of staff, what are some other barriers that you're dealing with?
Well, transportation is one, but that would be getting in with DOT. Not all of our libraries are on a bus route. So people don't have easy access. There are people in our county who do not have easy access to our facilities. Again, our service hours, that's a great barrier. They're not convenient. We have, well, let me tell you about this path that we have in our county. I asked the GIS team to look at employment, literacy, third grade reading proficiency, health insurance. And when they mapped it out, it was almost identical. The maps were almost identical. And so if you looked at the north, you started north, it was kind of wide, and then it winds its way through the county, and it broadens, it widens as it goes south. And on that path, you have a high rate of adults with less than a high school education, a high rate of people that speak English as a second language. 40% on that path, 40% of our children are reading at the third grade proficiency level, and we know that kids who are not reading proficiently by the third grade are likely to drop out of school or end up in detention center. 4% on that path were unemployed. And then outside of that path, for the third grade reading proficiency, you had 60%. So it's barrier to access. On that same path, 2 of our libraries are open less than 50 hours a week. So access is hard for the people that need it the most. Also, on any given day, you may have only 2 people opening that library, and that's a safety issue. So we've cross-trained our staff so that they can work at any library. But if I have to put the cataloger at a public service desk, that means that books aren't being cataloged, processed, and on the shelves for people to check out. It's not unusual for me to work alongside staff who are making $10 and less. I call myself the weakest link because my skills are not what they used to be. But it's important that we open up our libraries to serve and to serve safely. So there are barriers to access to having funding for materials so that we can keep up with the demand, transportation, and staff to provide the programs. We need to do more in reaching out into the community. We have the bookmobile. That bookmobile we received from our facility supervisor. He graciously gave us his vehicle, and we converted it into the bookmobile. That bookmobile is going out to serve the underserved.
Thank you.
Commissioner Richardson.
Just going to make some comments about some things that I certainly would like to see. I appreciate the presentation, but I know that there's been a lot of shifting sands with centralization, consolidating the libraries versus distributed models. Something I'm interested in knowing is we've now had the consolidated library, we have enough data at this point to know what would be the relative savings associated with consolidating libraries, and then whether or not that level of service. So if you have 2 libraries and they're both servicing X number of people, when we consolidate, is that number increased or decreased in terms of percentage? And then, so that's the second piece. And then third, I want to know whether or not the radius of impact is altered when we consolidate as well.
So, I can go back to when we consolidated Ackworth and Kennesaw. Mm-hmm. And again, that was 2 communities coming together. When we look at the data, now again, the usage has gone up in that area, primarily because we're serving teens. The high school is right across, but it's an older population. The cost to operate is pretty steady. Of course, it's increased because the space is larger, and we did have to add staff. When we look, we think our libraries are strategically located in the county. To look to consolidate any other would be a stretch to me at this point.
That's what I would perceive. I'm curious about the data behind it, because
Yeah.
I think it's important when we talk about investments for the future.
Okay, and we, in the packet, we have more information than what was presented here. We have the maps to show, the maps that I talked about with the path. So anything that you need, absolutely, we can provide.
Fantastic. And the last part was the radius of impact, meaning that now that consolidated libraries across the street from the school, but are we reaching people that are 5 miles away, 10 miles away? Is that
Absolutely,
does that
and we
change
do
with the
look.
coverage?
We do
Right.
look at that. We go out 1, 3, and 5. Yes, in service.
Thank
In
you.
the service area. Yeah.
Commissioner Gambrill.
So I know you're asking for more hours, but we didn't see any graphs on the number of users. So can we see what the user rate has been
Sure,
over
we
the
can
years
provide
and the
that for
trends
you.
for that? Because I know, even by library, that tends to fluctuate. And I don't know if we're tracking user rates within specific time hours.
We do.
Okay. And then also, you were talking about we need to cover more service, and then we've got the mobile library.
Mm-hmm.
Why aren't we having the mobile library deliver materials to people if it's going out into neighborhoods that are underserved?
We have a part-time person. So again, it's staffing. We do not have the staff to fully function. We pull people from other libraries to go out on that bookmobile. We have actually, she's now full-time. She just became full-time, that she's our driver for the bookmobile. And then she can pull someone else from their job to go out with her to the community. So it's a service that we need to grow. It's in the baby stages right now. It can be doing a lot more. We could be going to many places in the county that are underserved, but we don't have the staff. We would have to pull staff, like we're doing right now, from other departments, other libraries, to have that bookmobile on the road.
And then one other question, you were talking about, children 3rd grade and under with the reading. Have you looked to form a partnership with the schools to help with the reading programs?
Absolutely. We have a strong partnership with Marietta and Cobb Schools. And Cobb Collaborative, yeah, we have strong partnership, literacy partnerships.
Any other questions, Commissioner Burrow?
Helen, I know with the consolidation of Ackworth and Kennesaw, the regional library, which is more space than the two together, smaller libraries, was also strategically positioned in between the two cities to draw, the residents from each Ackworth and Kennesaw
Correct.
to the middle for a larger facility and all. So there's nothing else in that area, a regional library close by. But I do know with the East Cobb Library, with the two libraries in Ackworth and Kennesaw consolidating to the one regional library, you didn't lose positions because they were needed to fulfill
Right.
the folks there. And you may have even added more because it is a larger and has more, like a cultural center like Sewell Mill. So when Sewell Mill opened, it has 3 other libraries, 2 regional, and the East Cobb Library within a 3 to 7 or 8 mile radius. But Sewell Mill has a lot more than any of the other libraries, with the amphitheater, the black box theater, the music room, recording studio, music room, and the art center and everything combined. So, and it's in a great location, but it is close to Schweitzer and Mountain View, which are both regional libraries. But we added staff there, new staff there. So,
And again, we've looked at the demographics, as I mentioned earlier, different communities, and people in East Cobb don't seem to cross 75. So they're not going to Schweitzer for service. If you're Sewell Mill or East Cobb, they're not crossing 75. But again, two different neighborhoods, 2 different communities. The East Cobb patrons love their library.
I know.
And-
I know. Believe me, I know. So
It serves the-
with
it
the
serves the community
hours
well.
reduced, last year when the libraries were closed during COVID, how do we account for that with circulation and numbers?
I don't want to say that we've dismissed the COVID as far as numbers. We're still keeping track. Yeah, our numbers did go down because of COVID and when we were closed. What went up was our virtual collection, our digital collection. It became the #1 collection, if you will. Prior to COVID, we had good track record as far as circulation. And I can tell you, back in 2008, when we were at 1,000 hours of service, our circulation was 4 million. before COVID, normalcy now is 2 million. And again, it's access, that we're not open hours for people to come in and use our libraries to check out materials.
And I'd like to add to that, and I appreciate you bringing that up, and it provided a pretty hefty backdrop for me in looking at the services you provide and the service level you provide in a county of our size, and also our affluence and expectation around education. And when I look at the benchmark provided by the state and how we are lagging in one of the minimum standards, is a concern to me, or just barely over is a concern to me. Also, one of the slides where you provided the amount of investment in the libraries on a map, and you look at educational attainment or even workforce participation, it's almost reflective of the gap that's here in our county. And I think this is something I would like for us to be mindful of, because even though you can say certain areas love their libraries, certain areas have great opportunity to take advantage of libraries. And I know that there's been stress put on your organization that has not necessarily been self-imposed, but I think it's important for us as policy leaders to look at access and equity. It's not equitable for a working family to be able to get to the library if they're not open in the evening or the weekend. It's a barrier, that is a significant barrier, but it's not equitable when, also you have the areas that are I won't say underperforming, not performing as well, and again, in education and workforce participation also receive the least amount of investment in our libraries. I have personally observed our libraries are a gateway. I'm blown away when I go to the libraries and I hear the dialogue between your staff and our residents. They're helping them with everything, like you said, in getting access to governmental resources, by helping people find jobs, let alone helping people find a book that's on a shelf. And you're right, it's not a story house, but I don't know if we've come to the level of investment in the library system itself and recognizing that it's a gateway of service. It's almost like a government center in a sense, and beyond that, a government center, a career center. And, one thing that, I don't know, struck me, and I'm not going to say it's right or wrong, but we're looking back at 2011 at staffing levels and seeing where we are today to back then, and I'm just like, how do we ever go forward if we don't even catch up to where
we were.
We thought we were? So, maybe this is for Dr. McMorris. I know that Helen, I think, did a good job of making a case around equity and access, but this is not just a library issue. But I think there's a certain uniqueness to her agency because it's an access point for the public, and something that I know that you touched on, but I didn't see a lot of investment. It's even in security. Because it's an access point, it attracts all walks of life in that library that, I don't know even what security levels are like, but that's something that I think we should also be mindful of.
You're right. You all are just beginning to hear a lot of the things. Helen and her staff will avail themselves to come and have one-on-ones with you and walk the halls. We've often said when a kid is in the library, they're not out there slashing somebody's tires. When a kid is in a rec center, they're not out there being mischievous. We talk about public safety. Public safety is much broader than just what typically comes to mind. So in the evenings and then on the weekends, when they're doing something productive, like reading and learning, they're not out there in the streets, right? They're not out there doing those mischievous things. So to address public safety, we look at it more broadly than just police and SO. We talk about reading levels. We pay now, or do you want to pay in a detention center? So there's a lot that we need to look at holistically, and how do we address that? A lot of the people who work at our libraries are women, females. We want to make sure that they're safe. We want to make sure all of our employees are safe. But at the end of the day, when you're sometimes short of officers, they go to where the crime is. They have to be where that is. We have systemic issues that we have to address. But we're committed to making sure that she and her team are safe. I thank the officers and Randy and their team for drive-bys at our libraries. Helen can pick up the phone and staff can call, and they're right there. We appreciate that. Is it enough? Maybe we can do more. But at the end of the day, Chairwoman and Commissioners, we recognize this is not new to us. We recognize that we have some ways to go. But what I would encourage is, Helen, to reach out to you on an individual level, particularly the commissioners who are concerned about, libraries and service and consolidation and costs and use and those kinds of things, so that we can better inform you of where we stand, particularly in your districts. So if there's anything we can do to make sure that Helen and her team are safe, we will do that.
Okay.
But there's security also within our parks. There's security on our trails. So there's a lot of areas where we also need to address safety and security for the residents of Cobb that we need to also be thinking about as you all listen to the other presentations as well.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Just
Thank
a
you.
compelling presentation. Thank you. With that, we are going to segue into our Cobb County Extension presentation.
Thank you, Commissioners, Chairwoman and County Manager. I would like to say thank you for giving us the opportunity to come before you and talk about our departments and our needs. And I also would like to say that I'm very glad I'm a fairly easy department. I'm a smaller department, so my numbers are not going to look anything like what you have seen. But as I talk, I am going to talk about, individual positions, and I'm going to give something somewhat similar to an annual report type thing for certain positions. The numbers are not necessarily on the PowerPoint, but I can provide those to you. The mission of the University of Georgia Cobb County Extension Service is to be an educational arm of the University of Georgia with unbiased research-based information to the citizens of Cobb County in the areas of family and consumer science, 4-H and youth, horticulture and agriculture, and natural resources. So some of the challenges and opportunities for improvement that we have are adding staffing to meet service demand, a stronger response to educational needs within the community, and to provide state and federal mandated training to green industry and food service industries. So our personnel budget, I'm asking for an increase of $117,354, which equates to a 15.7% increase for two full-time positions. And if you'll notice on the chart, the green blocks represent extension, and the yellow line represents the county population. In 2011, we lost 2 employees, so we went from 16 to 14 employees because those 2 positions were cut. You can see our outreach has continued to go up along with the population. But if you will notice that our ratio has decreased just a little bit compared to 2011 with our outreach to the population. So our outreach has not suffered a whole lot, but it has suffered some. but my employees are extremely overworked, and they're progressively losing any work-life balance that they have. These positions are program assistant positions. One position is a 4-H and youth development program assistant, and one position is in our horticultural, agricultural, natural resources. So here's where I'm going to kind of get into some of the numbers of our outreach. At this time, I have one full-time program assistant and 2 part-time program assistants in our 4-H and youth department. These program assistants provide in-school and after-school education, community leadership programs, environmental programs, youth training and public speaking. They attend 5 different camps during the summer with hundreds of young people, and they lead young people in preparing for county, district, state, and national competitions. And I will add right here that right now I have 3 4-H'ers that are in Texas competing in a cooking competition, so be praying that they win. And we're real excited, and they were very excited because a lot of them have not been able to travel at all since COVID. These program assistants taught the 4-H and Youth Development Program in 27 different Cobb County and Marietta City schools, as well as private and charter schools, in 112 classrooms with over 2,700 students. We have actually had to fall back to 22 because I just do not have the staff that can any longer go into 27. In addition to this, they lead 9 specialty and community clubs. Keep in mind that these club meetings and community groups meet in the evenings and on the weekends. So this isn't outside of their daytimes in the office or their days in the schools. By the time they get home, they've missed family time, they've missed family dinners, and in a lot of cases, their children are already in the bed. In the absence of one of these program assistants, I have to pull from my administrative staff. And when I do that, I have to fill in for the administrative person. So this position would benefit our 4-H program greatly. In our horticulture, agriculture, natural resources department, I'm going to throw some more numbers at you. I have 2 full-time program assistants. One of these program assistants is over the Cobb County Master Gardener program. She manages 264 active master gardeners. They're volunteers that give over 22,000 hours annually while working 18 projects throughout the county. She also teaches various horticulture topic programs and oversees our seed starting program and our extension educational raised bed gardens. Our second program assistant in this department spends 80% of his time in the office assisting walk-in customers, taking phone calls, and processing diagnostic samples. And I will say that these phone calls can range. They're not just quick 2-minute phone calls. Some of them turn into 20 and 30 minutes. And when someone walks into the office, you know, sometimes they're spending 30, 45 minutes to an hour with these individuals. In spite of the pandemic, last year alone, he processed over 900 soil samples, over 80 water samples, and over 300 plant pathology samples and diagnostics, in addition to assisting over 2,000 individuals via phone calls, emails, or walk-ins. In addition to this, he conducts online classrooms. He oversees our Master Naturalist program and our wildlife management education. These program assistants are constantly pleading for more help. We're in desperate need of an additional program assistant in this department. And even though we seem to be meeting demand, it is by the skin of our teeth, and it is not sustainable. These individuals are maxed out. So in my operating budget, I am asking for $3,390, and this would cover technology costs for these 2 positions. Okay. So our overall ask is for $777,736 for an increase of $120,744. And although I'm not asking for capital, so you're not going to have a big capital number up there for me, I am going to talk about something. I would like to share a concept with you that would help us
better serve our community, and that is an urban agricultural education center. This facility would house the Extension Office, as well as NRCS, Soil Conservation, and Forestry. And those particular departments are in the building that we are in now. I don't want to sound unappreciative. I really don't, because I am appreciative. And I would like to take this opportunity to thank Scott Barfield and the property management staff for all that they do to keep our facility in shape. And of course, Dr. McMorris for upgrades that she has supported over the years. But we still have so many challenges. There's no green space. We're surrounded by asphalt. There's no outside on-site training space. So if we do any outside programs or trainings, we have to go off-site. And we do have some security issues. Why do we need this facility, and what is urban agriculture? Although we may not have corn or cotton producing farms in Cobb, we do have a large green industry. In 2019, 334 green businesses were operating in Cobb County. Collectively, these businesses employed over 3,000 individuals. These are the landscaping services, the landscape architectural services, and the florists. Part of our state mandate is to provide Georgia pesticide training. This training is necessary for licensing through the Georgia Department of Agriculture. These businesses are required to maintain this license in order to spray any pesticide on your lawn or in your yard where your family and your pets walk and play. We provide this training. Another mandatory service is the ServSafe training. According to Georgia Department of Public Health, there are approximately 2,400 food establishments in Cobb County. Each establishment is required to maintain a ServSafe certification that must be renewed every 5 years. We provide this training and this testing for this certification. This is to ensure that your food is stored, cooked, and served properly when you visit these establishments. In addition, there are hundreds of families with food gardens. There are homeowners associations that are trying to help their communities address laurel wilt disease, pine beetles, or armyworms in their lawns, community gardens, environmental education, food sustainability, safe food handling, greenhouses, raised bed gardens, and container gardens, turf management, whether it's industrial or private-owned homes, pest management, safe pesticide disposal. This is all urban agriculture, and these are all issues that we deal with in our department. In an urban center, we could provide a safer place for youth to come participate in 4-H activities, to participate in community clubs with less travel, to allow clubs to meet simultaneously with multiple training rooms, and to host regional, state, or even national competitions. This would allow us greater opportunity for outdoor community classrooms and hands-on demonstration with a greenhouse, raised garden beds, and a turf demonstration garden. It would also provide us with a training facility for our Master Gardener program and our Master Naturalist program. An industrial kitchen would give us the equipment and space needed to teach our 4-H cooking club, which is at the competition in Texas, our adult food prep, food safety, and food preservation programs, as well as our diabetes prevention classes. Much like the Safety Village, it would give us a unique opportunity to broaden our educational outreach while positively impacting the overall economic prosperity of this county. And if you'd like any further information on this concept, Director Tanks and I would be more than happy to come and talk with you. And that is it for my presentation. Do you have any questions?
Thank you. Just a clarifying question before I take other commissioner questions. You stated you didn't have a capital request, so this urban agricultural center, how do you see it moving forward?
Well, I would love to see it in the 25-26 budget. And we were talking very seriously about putting together a capital request in this area. But as we started talking more and more, and we have talked about it over a couple of years, we talked about, doing it through SPLOST, and that didn't go through. But as we started talking about it and the needs that we would have moving forward with this, we just couldn't put the figures together,
Okay.
the dollar figure for it. And a location is also a concern because it would need to be a centrally located place. And at this time, we did not see anywhere when I talked with property management.
Okay, thank you. So you're putting it out there, but just details
Yes,
that's
ma'am.
yet to be determined?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. Commissioners, do you have any questions? Commissioner Richardson?
Just one question. Have you considered, instead of a centralized location, maybe distributed locations, smaller satellite areas? Not for the main office, but for some of the programs?
Well, now, we do go out to off-site locations that that are not ours, and do programs. So we do that already.
Right.
Is-
I just meant that you would call your own, like I think of what DOT is doing with the satellite locations in order to get to certain places or to service different areas around the county, but
It's a wonderful idea, and we would certainly look at that. I know Fulton County has 3 locations within their county, so it is definitely something that, some other extension offices have done.
What percentage are you funded through Georgia, University of Georgia?
We have a little less than half of our funding through them, so they fall in slightly below what we get the county. And I don't have the exact figure with me, but I can get that for you if it's something you'd like to see.
So it's close to 50/50 or no?
It's probably, at this point,
60/40?
90%, $90,000 less maybe.
Okay,
But I can't actually say without looking at it.
that's fine. Thank you.
Sure.
Any other questions? Thank you. I appreciate all that you do. I think, I could say this probably for all the agencies that we've heard today. Even though you've helped to provide robust presentations, they just only help shed a light on a fraction of the work that you do and the impact that you have in our communities. And I know that from even interacting with some of the young people as part of the 4-H program. So
Yes.
thank you for all that you do and bringing your request before us today.
Thank you so much for saying that.
Yep, you're welcome.
Yeah, good job, Hope. Madam Chair, at this point, we did propose or suggest a break. If your
Okay.
board so decides, your call at this point.
Why not? Why don't we take a break until 3:00 p.m. and then we'll come back for the latter half of the presentations.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Hello and welcome back to our Board of Commissioners work session. We are in the latter half of hearing from the Public Services Agency, and we will kick off with our Parks Department.
Thank you, Chairwoman, Commissioners, Madam County Manager. As you've heard before, thank you for allowing us to come before you today to present our 23-24 biennial budget. One of the things that you'll hear from us in our story, one of the things that we pride ourselves on is being available for the public and being of service to the public. We have many ways that we touch the public, and we're proud of those ways, and we're always looking for new ways to be able to touch the public. Really, our mission statement is simply to provide a better quality of life for the residents. We talk in parks about creating memories. We do think that we create a lot of memories. As we say, we serve anywhere from 1 to 100, so we can serve all ages all the way through. So the big thing is about the body, mind, and the spirit of the citizen, and that's what we truly try to focus on. Just some of the pictures from some of our events that we have and some of the things that we do, and this again just a snapshot of some of the things. And one of the things that I want to focus on, just on this picture is the bottom left picture. That's one of our new swings, and we've got them in a few of our parks, not that many yet. But if you can imagine when you were being pushed by a mother or father, or when you are pushing your child, there's not a lot of interaction. But with this, that child is looking directly into the eyes, and you can imagine that memory that can create for that child. So that's just one of the things that we like to do in creating those memories. I'm not really sure how we've got a little bitty dog in our Frisbee golf, so I'm not sure how that worked, but we're going to look at that and make sure that we get that out of there.
If you add cute puppies to anything, the answer is yes.
Somebody told me that one time. I don't remember who it was. Just some of the challenges and opportunities that we look at. One of the things that we focus on, and it's not really a benchmark, but it's more of a standard. National Recreation and Park Association, which is the nationwide park and recreation association that we are a member of, they have one full-time equivalent maintenance personnel per 13.5 acres of maintenance, of maintained parkland. We're roughly at about 2,000 maintained acres of parkland. We do have 6,000 acres overall, but we're about 2,000 of maintained parkland. We're at about 21 acres per maintenance employee right now. The national standard's about 13.5, so we're a little over that, and we're pushing our staff a little bit too much. Also adding some recreational opportunities. We're always looking for new opportunities. One of the things that we focused on during COVID was trying to figure out a way that we could continue to interact with the public. So we came up with new ideas, whether it was our drive-up cabarets or drive-through movies, but virtual art box things, whatever we could do to continue to stay relevant to our patrons, through our residents. And I think that's one of the things that we want to continue to do, is to always stay ahead, be able to pivot quickly so we can add more recreational opportunities for people to be able to come to our centers, or to be able to do it virtually for as long as we have to. One of the things that we learned during COVID is that there are still ways we can put our programs on even after COVID. Our Drive Up Fall Festival that we're going to be having in about a month at Jim Miller Park, that's one of the great things, that the parents can put their child in a costume, and it's a safe evening where the child can still get candy. The parents don't have to worry about them running around out on the street. They're just in the car and they drive through. We've got a lot of stuff going on there. So we're pretty proud of that. Those type programming efforts won't necessarily go away just because of the end of COVID at some point. We can continue to do that. But it's one of those things that while we continue to do those type programs, there's still programs that we've focused on for years that we want to continue to do. So that's just more programs. Becoming accredited through the National Recreation and Park and the Commission for Accreditation of Park and Recreation Agencies, there's only 5 counties in the state of Georgia that are accredited through CAPRA, and we would like to be the 6th. There was actually 4. One was just accredited this past week in Nashville at the NRPA conference. But we want to be that 6th one, and it's going to take a little work to get there because we are a large county, and there's a lot going on, and there's a lot of standards that we have to meet to be that CAPRA accredited agency. Some of the things that, with the CAPRA accreditation, it just shows that you sort of meet that national, standard of best practices. And we want our residents to understand that we do provide the best service. We are the best, and we do have that live, work, play mentality that we really focus on. This is a graph and a little bit going on, but I'll talk a little bit about it. So roughly back in the 07-08 time frame, we had about 203 full-time employees. We took care of about 700,000 citizens and about 5,600 acres of parkland. Flash forward to today, we're at 182 full-time positions, about 766,000 population, and about 6,000 acres of land. So we've actually gone down roughly 20 full-time employees while adding population and adding park acres that we're maintaining. As you can see, back in the 2010, 2011, 17 employees took early retirement, and that was 476 years of experience that walked out the door. Experience is a big thing for us. Stability and continuity, it means a lot. And that's one of the things that we are looking at focusing on in the future is how do we continue with that stability and that continuity going forward. I will say this, not to be the negative person, I'm trying to keep this as upbeat as possible. We are down 21 full-time employees as of today. So we're roughly at about 160, 161. It depends. We see it every day. Something happens and we lose one. I can't pinpoint everything, but I know that y'all saw Mr. Hagler's presentation one session ago. It was a lot of the same things. It was a lot of the same 4 topics of why people are leaving. So that's something that we're struggling with. Of those 21, 14 of them are in our maintenance and operations area, and as you can imagine, that's an area that we struggle with on a constant basis. That is also some of our more lower rate of pay employees, and it's been a real struggle. As you remember from his presentation, a parks maintenance worker usually stays in recruitment about 166 days before we can get someone. So what we were finding out is before we hired one, somebody else was quitting, so we were never really getting on top. We were always staying way behind. And when you have 10 to 14 parks maintenance workers out there and you get one application every 30 days, it really becomes a little bit of a hassle to try to get someone on board and keep the morale up inside the area. We're doing all we can, but we're stretched thin, and we continue to be stretched thin in doing some of the things that we need to do in our park system. Part-time help is also a little bit tough at the moment. I know that I've had a conversation with at least 2 of you about some of our aquatic center problems. We're currently down about 28 lifeguards across our aquatic centers. And overall, we're about 75 part-time employees down from where we are usually in a fully activated year where we actually have full participation. So that's been a struggle. When you have center coordinators that are sitting in a lifeguard chairs for 6-8 hours a day, not really being center coordinators, when we have people having to teach classes, teach lessons, it becomes real difficult in doing their own job. A lot of times with I was talking with one of our rec program managers, they'll, middle of summer, put on a whistle and there'll be a day camp counselor because we just don't have the day camp counselors and we just don't have the bodies to take care of the children. So it's something that we continue to focus with, but it seems to be getting a little bit worse over the last few years. And it's something that we continue to focus on today to stay focused on what we're going to do next. I know that this was, I believe this question was asked at one point, Chairwoman, about some of the retirements from some of our agencies and departments. But strictly speaking, from the parks standpoint, we're at about 92 in hybrid. And if you remember from Mr. Hagler's presentation, we're averaging about 4 years on our hybrid retirement employees. So you're looking at a lot of the department with a lot less experience than you need. Of our 66 that are in traditional, 16 are eligible to walk out the door and retire today. So we're starting to get to where we're getting that traditional or getting closer towards the end. We have another 8, I believe, in 2022 that are eligible from the traditional. So now you're going to be looking at less than 20 to 25% of the staff is going to be, that traditional retirement employee that has been here for multiple years that stays and that gets that experience. Talking about our personnel, and I go through some of these, but we're looking at about 37 new positions over the 23 budget cycle. A cost of about $2.872 million. It's about a 16% change, a 17% change. And I won't go through each one of these. I'm absolutely hoping to be able to sit down with each one of you one-on-one and discuss all of these positions. But I'll go through a couple of them and just talk about some of the challenges that we're facing with that. If you'll focus on the sort of the middle of the page, that recreation specialist programmer position, we're asking for 11 of those positions. And why so many? One of the things that we're looking at is Osborne Milford Area Recreation Center will hopefully come on board in the next 2 years. So we'll need someone to run that center. But all of our other recreation centers have one full-time programmer. If you're trying to keep open a recreation center for multiple hours a day, it's really hard to have one full-time programmer be there, because a lot of times they're just doing the work of the center, and they're not really focusing on what's coming in there. They're not focusing on being able to run some programs out of there. We've had multiple discussions with the division managers and I about the programming standard that we want to implement with our staff. And one of the things that we're looking at is having a minimum programming standard of a number of classes that we teach in-house that's not necessarily by an outside contractor. It's becoming a little bit harder, as you can imagine, with some outside contractors, simply because there's a lot going on with whether it be pay for that outside contractor, but there's also just not that many left. A lot of folks just don't want to do that type work for 1 hour, every 3 days, so it's really tough on that. So we'd like to bring a lot of that back in-house. So one of the things that we're looking at is to put a specialist in each one of our recreation centers, and then adding some specialists at some of our other locations. The Arts Station out Big Shanty is the only arts center that doesn't have a specialist in it. We've got the gymnastics center. It doesn't have a specialist, and we're running gymnastics. It's a daily and nightly thing, and we're trying to run it with full-time, with some part-time staff help. And then just looking at some of our natural resources, our outdoor education. Outdoor education has become a big deal over the past few years. The trend is not necessarily moving away from a team sport, but I think what it's doing is it's morphing into more of that unsupervised recreation where people want to go out on a trail, or people want to go to a class and learn about some of the things, learn about certain leaves or insects or animals or what have you. So we're doing a lot more with that natural resources type thing. So that's some of the things that we're focusing on. The same thing with our parks maintenance worker. Our parks maintenance worker, we have multiple parks that do not have a maintenance worker in them, and those are our parks a lot of times that struggle. When you've got a parks maintenance worker taking care of a park, and they take care of that park 8 hours a day, they take a lot of pride in that park. A lot of times when a park is being visited once or twice a week by other staff members and they're doing multiple parks, it becomes real hectic. They don't quite take as much effort and time into that location. And over time, it just starts to wear on it a little bit. So we're trying to add some new parks maintenance workers to some of our parks that don't necessarily have somebody, while also looking at having a roving crew per each one of our zones. Roving crews actually will help when things happen that are very non-routine, and it becomes more and more that things are becoming non-routine now. So we're looking at those. Again, just adding some of these staff are going to be a big help for our morale, but it's also going to put more pride back into a lot of our parks and our facilities. So we're looking at that. A special events coordinator, that's one of the things that we do not have currently in the county. Most of our special events, they're run by someone either at a recreation center or an art center or aquatic center or tennis center. Well, anytime somebody runs a special event, a lot of times that event could be 3 months, 6 months of planning and then execution. A lot of times that takes away from that person's job as it is. So we would like to have someone that could really implement our special event coordination and could do multiple countywide special events, because we always need to do more. We need more special events. That's the way you bring a community together, and we need to be focused a little bit more on that. So, one of the things that we've looked at is the possibility of some type of a holiday light show. We've looked at something like that, but we've got multiple other ideas of just ways to get, and while it'll be a countywide special event, it may be in 4 different areas of the county, and it really focuses on that area. But we need to be really focused on that. We really need somebody to do that. Just to give you a couple of quick ones, the administrative coordinator would look for our accreditation, our GIS supervisor. We're doing so much with our ELM project, with our story maps, with our cartograph work order management system. There's just not a lot of time for our GIS person to do the things that we need to do. We've been focusing on trying to get our aquatics, recreation, tennis, things like that, find out where those people are and find out where they're coming from, and try to be able to put that on a map and say, we need to be going here, we need to be going there. And that's one of the things we focus on, where the people are that are taking the class. If we find out that, people in East Cobb are taking a class, but they're going all the way to West Cobb to take that one class that we're only offering in West Cobb, why not move it to East Cobb and see if we can get 2 classes going at the same time? So we're looking at a lot of that with our GIS. And then a deputy director for simple fact of, we're a pretty large multifunctional department, and I think a deputy director would really help our agency. Again, going up the crew leader, you can have parks maintenance workers, but you're going to need some supervision of those parks maintenance workers. It always helps to have a crew leader that's over multiple parks and/or multiple parks workers, simply because you need a little bit of eyeballs on what's going on. We have what we call supervisors, but our supervisors are working supervisors. Our supervisors don't necessarily supervise because we've got so much going on that they actually are in the field pretty much 8 hours a day, and they're actually doing the work. So it's a struggle for us to keep up with that, and we're doing our best. Our heavy equipment operator and then senior crew leader, one of the things that we're looking at right now is our retention ponds. Our retention ponds around the county are in poor shape. They're not just in poor shape, for parks, but we try to maintain them as best we can, but it's not always easy. So one of the things that we want to do is we want to take the retention ponds for the county and have it all done under our parks land unit, because that's where our heavy equipment operators and all work, and that's something that we think we can get a good handle on. It just makes it's not only for the look and the aesthetics, but you can imagine how many times those pipes are stopped up, and that just causes water issues down the road. A pool maintenance tech, again, South Cobb Aquatic Center, our only aquatic center without a pool maintenance tech. So what we're having to do is we're actually having our coordinator look at the pool maintenance and making sure that the chemicals are correct. So I'd rather have that person focus on their job and actually have somebody that's focused on the maintenance of our pools. And then salaries, our part-time salaries, looking at those. So one of the things that we've run into with our aquatic centers is we didn't necessarily have enough recreational assistants, part-time recreational assistants, to run our front desk. So what we do is we actually put our lifeguards on a rotation. So our lifeguards actually run the front desk operations for our pools. What happens is that means you're taking a lifeguard off the deck. And anytime you take a lifeguard off the deck, out of that chair, then that's just one less thing that they can be watching on. They need to be focusing on saving lives, not focusing on answering the phone or checking people in. So that's one of the things that we need to do, is we need to up that. So again, our budget ask is about $2.87 million. And our operating budget, we're looking at about a $780,000 increase, about 9.9%. I'll go over those again also, but just some of the things that we look at on a daily basis, that while we just don't necessarily have the correct funding to take care of all of it, it's just some of the things that we see and that we notice and that we put on a list, and it's mostly just deferred maintenance. So when you have the time and when you have the money, you try to take care of it. If you look at the bottom right, that's a door at one of our aquatic centers. Our aquatic centers, as you can imagine, with that caustic atmosphere, with all the pool chemicals and everything, that our doors suffer pretty greatly. That door right there is pretty common in all of our aquatic centers and in a lot of our recreation centers as well. But the roof, you start getting some rust on the roof. You start getting fences rolled up. While that's not necessarily a replacement, it is definitely a repair of what you need to be doing to keep that safe and to keep it where children can't get stuck up under that fence. The same thing here. I won't even start on the one on the left. That's a valve, and the valve covers a wooden box. Then you've got tape over something that's right outside of a roll-up door. It's just a lot going on there. You can see rusted bolts in the back of it, and that's the bolts of the beams over aquatic facility. Same thing, sort of the top right, you can look at what that door is doing. And then in the bottom right, a lot of our staff just working on certain things that they need to do with our infields to make our infields and fields safe for the public to use. This just gives a highlight of all of that, but one of the big issues is the operations and maintenance supplies. A lot of that with the maintenance supplies, as you can imagine, that's recreational supplies to run new programs. That could be anything from wood, bridge repair, everything else. So we're going up in that pretty tremendously. Pine straw, mulch, sand. All of these things are beautification efforts that, while we would love to do them a lot more, we just aren't able to do them. And this would really expand our way to be able to make our parks look more aesthetically pleasing. Same thing with some of our accountable items. You can see that in our accountable items, we've taken care of a lot of things with, you can imagine diving boards, kilns. While a lot of this doesn't sound very, very, very great and fun to listen to, you can imagine when that diving board's going to fail at one of these days, and when that diving board fails, that could cause a serious problem to someone, and we've always got to be aware of that. And again, that's just one thing that happens in one aquatic center. When we have multiple centers that we've got to worry about, that's just something that we've got to always be planning for. Professional services actually went down. That's just to show you that we did decrease some things. One of the things that we focused on really tough this year with our business management is making sure that we were coding things correctly, because that's the way you correctly run a budget. If you're not coding things correctly, you just really don't get a good snapshot of what you're spending your money on. So I wanted to really focus on doing that and keeping that straight for this year. Again, same thing, sort of in the back, the repair and maintenance, about $150,000 increase. But again, those are all the things that handles with tree issues and any safety issues that we have. We have a lot of trees in our parks, as you can imagine, and trees fall, and trees are going to fall, and we got a lot to take care of. So that's just something that we always worry about, making sure that we at least stay as safe as we can for the public. We're also asking for $1.545 million in our capital budget. That is 100% increase since we have had no capital funding. Our capital funding mostly comes from our SPLOST project, but our SPLOST projects, when we start out a SPLOST project, you're looking at $125 million worth of repairs, renovations, and things that need to be done. And of course, that gets cut. So you get down to what you've got now. The problem with SPLOST is from our standpoint, SPLOST is renovations. You know, we've got a lot of parkland that we would love to build new parks on, but we can't do the SPLOST projects with parks because we're so busy worrying about the renovation. If we can actually start with a renovation budget inside of our capital account, we can start focusing on the next thing, whether it be a SPLOST project, whether it be a parks bond program, is to actually think about either purchasing of land or taking care of what you've already purchased. Because the more land that we purchase and we can't fix, it's just land sitting there that we've got to maintain at some point. So just to give you a quick example, a lot of our land improvements and our renovation of building and structures is exactly what you think of that with our fields. They're always needing updating. Our buildings, while we do as much as we can, there's always more that we could be doing. As you can look at, and we'll look at the next slide at some of our pictures. One of the things that you'll see in the 23 budget is we did look at for some vehicles, some trailers and some equipment that will be a one-time purchase inside the 23 budget. But then when we go to the 24 budget, that budget will stay the same. We'll just move that money around into other things such as renovation of building and structures. But to just give you an idea, you know, you've got a building that on the left is starting to wear down. It's a very small bathroom. It's one of those that when it was built, it was great, and it lasted about a month before it started being overrun because there was just so much participation at that location. I'm absolutely embarrassed to show you the middle picture, but it's one of those things where sooner or later it just our staff gets blinders too. And that's one thing that we focus on is to stop getting those blinders just because you were told X number of years ago that we didn't have the money to fix it. It just all of a sudden becomes we just never have the money to fix it, and so you don't even try anymore. So that's one thing that we're really focusing on right now. Same thing on the right. It's just an area that, you know, just a little bit of sprucing that up, putting a shade structure there could actually be a really nice sitting area for a tennis or pickleball court. It just takes just a little bit. So those are the little things that we do. And like I said, this is our one indoor play structure at South Cobb Aquatic Center. That play structure at some point is going to have to be replaced. And you know, the more it sits in that water, the more that there could be a chance for it to rust out. And that's something that we don't need to wait until it happens. These are the things that we need to take care of right before they happen. And those are the things that we want to focus on with this improvement project. Again, the building and the fencing, a lot of our fences are rusted out, and we're trying to change as many as those as we can, but it just takes time with all the property that we have. So again, about a 1.545 ask for the 24 budget as well as the 23 budget to continue that capital program moving forward. So this is just the finalized, and the finalized is about a $5.1 million, $5.2 million increase over previous, about a 20% change. But it's one of those things that you know, we really struggle to try not to show that everything's bad because we've got a great staff. We have some great facilities. It's just one of those things that we wanted to be, you know, adequately funded and appropriately staffed so we can continue to provide the best service that we can for Cobb County. So with that, any questions?
Thank you, Michael. I'll defer to commissioners first. Do any commissioners have any questions? Again, Parks is one of those facilities that's a gateway, and considering all of the programs that we have, people may not necessarily interface with us as commissioners, but more than likely they're going to interface with one of our parks. And so the way it's maintained does make a statement about who we are as a county. So I appreciate you bringing that to our attention, as well as some of the needs that have just been overlooked. And I think you hit the nail on the head with why these discussions are very important, because after a while, if people can't fund certain things that they know need to get funded, then they just start to overlook them because nobody ever places importance on why they need to get funded. So thank you again for your enlightening presentation today.
Sure.
Yeah. All right, thank you.
Thank you. Oh, and next will be Ms. Kimberly White from
Yes.
Keep Cobb Beautiful.
Thank you, Kimberly.
Sustainability, Waste, and Beautification.
Okay.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
County Chairwoman, Commissioners, County Manager. Okay, so I'm just going to briefly go over my flow of the presentation. We're going to go over our mission and purpose, departmental history, challenges and needs, budget request, and then a recap. Okay, the Sustainability, Waste, and Beautification Department, we have 4 main focus areas. So we provide leadership and support and for daily operations of our transfer station, our vegetative waste site, and our recycling facility across the street from our office on county services. We also monitor and do compliance for our county landfills that are all closed. And then we also provide waste reduction programs. So these programs are in accordance with local, state, and federal regulations, and then promote stewardship of our communities through our litter prevention, programming, beautification, recycling, and environmental education. The top graph shows our county population as it increased from 1970 up until 2020, or the year 2020. And in this time frame, when this increase was happening, we have 4 kind of major events that occurred. In 1995, we awarded a bid to build a $26 million compost facility. Within 4 years, though, the county identified that the vendor was not able to manage that, so we had to take that back over and assume operations of that facility in 1999. In 2009, the county privatized, and we privatized all of our solid waste, our operations. And then in 2020, we created the Sustainability, Waste, and Beautification Department. The table at the bottom, or the graph at the bottom, shows our staffing levels in this same time frame as the population has increased. Pre-2007, we had 72 staff members that were a part of the solid waste division at that time, which is now Sustainability, Waste, and Beautification. When we privatized, we went from 72 staff members down to 7. We stayed at that level of 7 staff members until 2020, when we received 3 additional staff members, and now we're at 10 staff members total. That includes the Keep Cobb Beautiful team. This is our current organization chart. So first, I just want to say thank you to all the people that work over in Sustainability, Waste, and Beautification Department with myself. We're a very small team, right? But I always say we're small, but we're mighty. Because what we do in the county, we really touch every single citizen, every visitor, every commuter, because everyone is affected by how waste is managed. So waste management in this county, including recycling, affects everyone. So if you're in this county and you throw something away, or you recycle something, or even if you litter, you come into contact with our team in some form or fashion. So what are some of our challenges? Garbage hauling deficiencies, limited ordinance, limited staff, reduction of volunteers. I'd like to take a second to talk a little bit about this one. The reduction of volunteers, our Adopt a Mile program, is very popular. Most people, if they don't really know everything that we do, they definitely know the Adopt a Mile program. However, over the past year, we have definitely decreased our Adopt a Mile numbers. Some of the people who were our volunteers in this program have been with us for over 30 years. And we lost some of those volunteers unfortunately lost some of the ability to be able to address, litter in these particular areas. We also have recycling disruptions, old broken capital equipment, and then increased litter for sure. So this is a map of the county. This is an overlay of the heat map that shows where the progression, or where litter has been found in an abundance, especially where you see the shading change. This is an overlay of where our litter index routes are. So there's a litter index route in each district, and it overlaps a lot of the areas that are considered high areas of litter. And this overlay shows our adopt-a-mile groups. So as you can see, it kind of overlaps one another, right? So you'll see that our adopt-a-mile groups address areas that we have higher concentration, of litter or reports of litter. So these are brand new numbers, actually. You guys are all going to receive this report. The latest numbers have come up for 2021 now. So our litter index survey is something that's done every year. And we focus on a number of measures that give us the total score. So litter, of course, being the most important for the litter index survey, but we also look at things like pedestrian safety, curbing, illegal signs, graffiti, and tires. The score, you want to be as close as possible to a 1, because that means that you have very little to no litter in your community. As you creep up and get closer to 2, you definitely have more litter in that community. You could also see each one of the districts over the years. So from 2017 to 2021, you can see in 2018, we really were able to kind of get that number down, right? So we were getting closer to a 1 at a 1.58. But over the past year, we've gone back up, unfortunately. So last year we were at 1.76, and we're now at 1.71. And so we really want to focus on trying to get this litter index score down, because the higher that number goes, what it's saying to us is that we have more litter, in our community that's being noticed by residents, and they're reporting this. So what are our needs? So today I'm gonna talk to you a little bit about obviously our personnel and our operating our capital. However, what I'd like to kind of go over a little bit is a soft approach, an internal approach to handling litter and also recycling in the countywide, to include our mini charm centers. In 2016, we had approximately 200 to 300 cars come through a recycling event over at Jim Miller Park. And we would do the event on a Saturday, and it would last from 9 to 12 or 9 to 1. Present, the last few events that we've had over the last few years, so let's say from 2019 to now, we can be upwards of anywhere, past 2,000 cars that we process in the same time frame at Jim Miller Park at our events. If anybody's been to our events, you see the people come out to the events. They're really excited to be able to drop off recycling or be able to drop off their paint or whatever type of events that we're engaging in that day. We would then like to address garbage concerns through the ordinance, through our ordinance. So code amendment, and included in those garbage concerns would then be garbage collection zones, waste characterization study, develop and execute a sustainability plan, and then our initial steps would be full departmental resources obtained and then full staffing levels implemented. This is an updated org chart. What I'd like for you guys to kind of take a look at here in this particular org chart that was different than the others, or than the other one, was that all of the boxes that have requested, these are positions that we do not currently have, but that will address the issues that we have and allow us to really be able to have an effective solution to be able to handle litter in recycling in the county. And so currently the way that this structure works is underneath of the sustainability, waste, and beautification, there are 3 divisions. So that's our operations / contracts, Keep Cobb Beautiful, and then our landfill division. Our landfill division has 3 staff people. We are required to maintain the closed landfills, which is what we currently do. And then, of course, our business, our operations division, we do not currently have a staff member in that section. What happens is our sustainability admin and our director typically handle all of those operational duties. The same with Keep Cobb Beautiful. So even though we are probably, well, if you know us for litter, the next thing you know us for is recycling, right? So our recycling unit, we do not currently have any positions in the recycling unit. Those duties are typically handled by the division manager, myself, and sometimes other staff members help as well. And of course, then we have an environmental education unit and then a litter prevention unit. Currently, right now, we only have 2 staff members that make up that unit. And so they spend the majority of, I would say they spend probably more than 50% of their time cleaning up the recycling drop spots. You know, those drop spots have increased. People are starting to use them a lot more, and it's definitely been a challenge. I mean, the moment we get out there and we clean it up and we leave, then the next day we're having to go back out there and clean it up again. So they're being pulled from being able to handle other areas of concern, like picking up adopt-a-mile bags or doing litter cleanups in what we call our hot zone areas. They're not able to get to that because they're spending so much time on cleaning up the drop spots. So now we're at our personnel request. This is for FY 2023. All of this information will come to you in a packet so you can read through it. But I would just like to address that the majority of these positions would be used as far as like crews would be concerned for each district. So if we could get the staff members to be able to focus on the recycling areas in the Adopt-A-Mile member miles, and then also litter, request in the districts, in all of the districts actually. The operating budget will go along with, or the operating request will go along with the personnel. It is $496,367. And what we're doing, we're asking for office supplies, mobile devices, computer supplies. I mean, I'm not going to read through the whole thing, but you see that that is an addition, to add to what we're asking for personnel in order to get us up to speed to where we would need to be. With additional staff, we definitely need uniforms, with operating supplies. That number would change from 2023 to 2024. I'm sorry, the number would stay the same. However, in 2023, we would be using that to outfit all county buildings with recycling. And then in 2024, outfit the outside facilities with recycling in the outdoor spaces. So our capital needs, this is actually this is a 100% increase because we haven't had any of these requests lately or in the past. There is some with an adjustment for the replacement of county assets. We have some assets that are at the landfill, and those assets need to be replaced now. So we need things like dump trucks or dozers or different equipment for the landfill. However, we also need some trailers and crew cabs, and then also roll-off containers to address increased recycling initiatives throughout the county. So this is the general fund for 2023-2024, our request. You can see the personnel adopted for 2022 compared to the proposed increase for 2023 and 2024. The difference is about a little over $2.6 million increase, and the change is 88%. I'm sorry about that. That was a typo. So it's our increase in percentage for personnel is 34%. The increase in the change in increase for operating is 20%, and then the change in increase for capital is 100%, which brings us to the 88% increase for our department. With that 88% increase, what this takes us to for Cobb County, currently what we do is we spend $2.58 per resident to address waste management, to address waste collection, waste management, and recycling. If we were able to increase our budget to the ask, we would be able to spend $8.58 per person in Cobb County to address waste management and recycling. The closest municipality to us, as far as price would be concerned, is the city of Atlanta, and they're spending $16.99 per person. And then in Gwinnett County, it's $41.87 per person. So even with the increase of the budget that we've asked for, we will still be far below the closest, municipality or county to us.
Kimberly, is that for comparable services?
Yes, so for example, the city of Atlanta has a charm center, so it's a manned drop-off location where they're able to drop off hard-to-recycle plastics, just a number of things. One of the issues for us, for our recycling drop spots, is that they're unmanned, so there's not a way really to kind of keep an eye on it, and people are able to just drop off anything. And so we have issues with businesses dropping off large amounts where then residents can't drop off, or people just dropping it off on the ground, and then it ends up becoming litter, and we spend most of our day picking that up.
Certainly. But does Gwinnett or Atlanta, do they have waste pickup services? Are we making apples-to-apples comparison, or are they providing something significantly beyond what we're providing?
I can get you all of the numbers and all of the counties that we compared ourselves to. It's really difficult because no one is exactly the same way.
Okay.
So whereas the city of Atlanta, they have their own collection, but they are not a franchise system. Gwinnett County is. And so it varies.
Okay.
But for us, what we all have in common is that we don't have any open or active landfills where we are. So all of our waste and recycling goes outside of, our area. And it's the same for Gwinnett, and it's the same for Atlanta. And so unfortunately for us, if we don't have any open landfills, so all of our material goes to another location, and we've even had to truck it all the way to Alabama when those landfills were not able to take our material.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Richardson?
Just on that point, though, we can take the individual line item services that they render for the ones that we do match to, or at least what we're trying to match to, add those up, divide that by the population, and we can generate at least, it's not apples to apples in terms of the total budget, but it is apples to apples in terms of the subset of services that are comparable, because that number, I think, would be a really good benchmark.
Okay, we'll definitely get that number to you.
Yeah.
Commissioner Burrow?
Thank you. Our services are privatized, like we have private companies that run our transfer station, our recycling facility, whereas Atlanta does their own collection, and even DeKalb, they do their own collection, residential and commercial, and also have their own landfill. So how, and Gwinnett has their own recycling facility that they run through Gwinnett Clean and Beautiful.
Well, actually, Gwinnett no longer has that recycling facility. You are correct about DeKalb County, but I did not match DeKalb County, benchmark them, because they do have their own landfill and they do have their own trucks collection operations.
Right.
However,
but
the city of
how do we compare when our services are privatized, not the garbage collection, but the transfer station and the recycling with West Rock, to the cities or counties that provide their, well, franchise in Gwinnett, but with Atlanta that provides their own?
Well, Atlanta collects, but their material actually, they don't have their own recycling facility or MRF there. Their material actually goes to Pratt. And so they're similar to us, that our material goes to West Rock, which you're right, is privatized. But I can get numbers for other areas. What I was wanting to show was in our general vicinity in the Metro Atlanta area, the closest to what we do here, what those numbers look like. But we have benchmarks against some places in Florida and also North Carolina that may be more comparable, but they're just in a different state, so they may have a little bit of a different setup than we do here.
Okay. And then for some of the, like when you say roll-off, do you mean to contract with a hauler to do that? Or would we went and purchase our own roll-offs, but we do have a contract for our dumpster service and all that, that should be provided that way.
We do have a contract. However, it has been a challenge You know, over the years, the contract that we have now, it is better than the contract that we had when I first started. However, we still have the same issues. There are driver issues, there are collection issues, there are truck issues, and we're not notified until a resident calls to say there's litter everywhere all over the ground, and then we have to drop everything and go. And we have 2 staff members that are able to do this. So, I mean, you can imagine in a county this size, that's taking them all day to be able to handle those issues. So that the ask is that we would handle this internally. We would be much more effective and efficient at being able to keep the drop spots, operating in a much more efficient manner because it would be internal.
Well, I think that should be part of the contract with the private hauler to be responsible for that, not us take it over if it's already contracted out. I mean, I know they're going to charge more for extra days of service because we've had that problem at the recycling drop centers. In my district, I know, and people leave stuff all over the ground when the dumpsters are full with cardboard or plastic or whatever they're using them for. But it would be, to me, it would be less expensive to add another day or 2 of service if, rather than your staff have to go out there with a van and pick everything up and then take it to the recycling. Okay,
I have to interrupt. No, that's right. Well, I want to be fair to Kimberly. She's filling in for a department head. As a division manager, she's done a great job. But we do have one more presenter, and some of the details can be discussed at the one-on-one meetings. I think today's goal is just to present budget requests and not to get into too many operational details. So I hate to interrupt. I know y'all got a 7 o'clock BOC. Somebody's probably getting hungry. Madam Chair, if it's all right, would like to bring up our last presenter.
Okay, let me just make sure no other commissioner had any questions.
Thank you.
And we will follow up. Matter of fact, Kimberly, we get some points.
Thank you for your presentation.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Good afternoon, everyone. The good news is I am the last one. The bad news may be that some of the same budget issues are going to be found in my presentation as well. I know this is probably overwhelming for you guys to hear this over and over again, but I want to thank you for the opportunity for the departments to come before you and share this information. For many years, we were told to just keep the budget flat, no capital, no positions. So having the opportunity to share with you, no matter what your decision is good for us. So I thank you for that. This is our mission statement. I think you've all seen this before. I did have the opportunity to come talk to you earlier this year, and I appreciate that as well. Our main mission here in a brief statement is to make sure that elections are accessible to everyone who is qualified to vote. And briefly, I'm going to build on this slide, but briefly, this is how our divisions are organized. We have the admin division, which is myself, my assistant, and the financial operations of our department. We do the board meeting minutes and the minutes and the meetings, agendas, etc. We have the registration division, which handles absentee and advance voting, voter registration, voter list maintenance, customer service for all of our walk-ins, phone, email, and our website management. And we have the elections division, which handles all the poll workers, the procedure development for the polls, training of the poll workers, and polling site acquisition and contracts. And then the prep center is the voting equipment maintenance, testing, and transport, and preparation of all the forms and materials for Election Day polls. Now, currently, what I have is 26 full-time positions, and they're spread across the organization as seen on that slide. This is what we will have in the FY22, which is 29 full-time positions. And this is a result of when I came before this board earlier this year and asked for additional positions. In the 22 budget, I was giving 3 additional full-time and 2 part-time positions. So that gets me up to 29. We are right now recruiting and hiring for those positions, and they should be on board at the beginning of that fiscal year. What I'm requesting for this next budget round, the FY23, is to bring us up to a level of 34 full-time positions. So what we did earlier for the upcoming FY22 is we really met the greatest need, or what we felt was the greatest need, in the absentee and advance voting area, and then in our fiscal operations as well. But we had no way to fill the gap in the other divisions. So our next ask is to have 2 positions in the voter registration division, and 2 in the elections, and 1 in the preparation center area. What I would like to show you on this slide is how voter registration affects our workload. And, you know, in the same way that Michael talked about the acres of parks affects how many people he needs, and the mileage of streets probably affects DOT, voter registration also affects us. And moving from the left to right on this slide, the fiscal year column, obviously it starts October 1st, and these fiscal years are the first year of each of the biennial budgets for the last few. And as you can see that on the first year of the biennial budget, the very first month after it becomes effective, we have the biggest election of our cycle. So for instance, the 2021 fiscal year, we started with the presidential election a month later. So really all of the rest of that build up to that big election, a lot of the preparation for that, plus all of the primaries, all happens in the cycle before that, the biennial before that. If you look at the registration columns, which shows the registration numbers, the change plus or minus, and the change percentage, an interesting thing has started to happen. Previously, you'll notice that we would go down in registration on the governor year, and then it goes back up on the presidential year. Well, that has to do with a lot of the list maintenance that happens on the off years, and then it doesn't build itself back up again until all the voter registration drives and everything happen in the presidential year. What has happened recently in the last 3 election 2-year cycles is we've seen a steady increase. And that's due to the automatic voter registration that went into place in 2016. And even though we're still doing list maintenance, which is removal of people who move out of the county, or the statewide purges and that sort of thing, it's now still just growing continuously. So what we have at this point with the column on the right, which is our full-time positions, is our positions have grown 24% since 2009, but registration has grown 36% in that same time frame. And if we project forward in the next 2 cycles, which now we're having the fiscal year 2023 on this chart, if we took a very conservative 9% growth as opposed to the 14 or 12 that we've seen previously, we're going to be up to 650,000 voters by the next presidential election. And you can see that the positions at 36 or 38% growth, if we go to our 29, which we're going to get in this next cycle with the 22 fiscal year, is still only at 38%, whereas voter registration has grown 62% at that point. So with this request that we're making in the FY23 budget, we want to change this to 34 positions, and that way we're at 62% growth in positions, just like we're at 62% growth in registration. So for benchmarking purposes, I checked with Gwinnett County Elections. They're currently at 35 full-time positions in their FY 2021, and they're requesting 8 more for their FY 22. They're on a slightly different fiscal year than we are. They go by calendar year. So that brings them up to 43 full-time positions, which will be in place next year. And so we still feel like this will meet our voter registration growth. So this is where we're trying to get to. All right, so this is what we're trying to put into this request for the FY23. As I said, 2 full-time and 1 part-time in registration, 2 in elections, and 1 full and 1 part-time in prep center. And that's the cost for the total amount of salary plus fringe and the operating for the computers and phones. So what this looks like is an increase of the $222,000 for the full-time personnel. But if you'll notice, this also is something I was going to mention earlier. The FY23 budget is just our full-time people, but the FY24 includes part-time people and seasonal people, because our budgets are not going to be the same each year. That is something unique to elections. The FY23 includes 1 election and possibly a runoff, and that is the biggest election. It'll be the governor's race. But the FY24 includes 4 elections, because it'll have the municipal elections in 23, and it'll have the presidential primary, and then the general primary and the general primary runoff. So it's a whole different budgeting scenario. We'll have a lean year and a heavy year. And so that's why the FY24 is so much higher, because that personnel increase is for also increased numbers of precincts, and we need more poll workers for that, and increased numbers of advanced voting locations. All right, so our projected operating costs are also not the same each year. As you can see, the FY24 is higher due to having those 4 elections. And we expect to see increases in several key areas, mainly because of changes in our voting system. We now have a paper-based system, and we have to buy a special kind of secure ballot paper. And also there are many new consumables, such as printer cartridges, seals, and other supplies. Lastly, we have increased costs related to temporary service workers. The cost to get workers has increased, just like our own workers. And we need more people to get everything done by the stricter due dates that are imposed by the new voting law. All right, leaving personnel and operating, I'd like to talk about capital, the voting system. We will need to buy additional pieces of equipment for the voting system, because as our population grows, we need more pieces to serve those voters. There is a law on the books that we have to have 1 voting enclosure for every 250 voters in a precinct. And so as precincts grow, because the voting population grows and the registration numbers grow, we do have to buy more equipment. We're also considering splitting some precincts that are getting too large, and so we will need more equipment for that. And then just, of course, the normal wear and tear and breakage that we would have to replace. So what we're looking at are these items. There are quite a few components in the new voting system. So I have listed all of the components there, our current inventory, what our request is, and this request is really just based on 5% growth. So I'm even being more conservative than the 9% that I looked at on the last slide. And so then that gives us the cost of each of those components and the total of almost $600,000 for the equipment over the 2 years of the cycle of the biennial. Now, there is a possibility that we could put perhaps that money into a designated contingency as well. If that growth does not happen as expected, then that could be placed in other areas. The other capital item that we're looking at is the 26-foot box trucks that we use to deliver to the polls. In one of the grants that we received, we bought 3 trucks so that we wouldn't have to spend so much on renting trucks. We would like to have 3 additional trucks. When we deliver to the polling places, we have 6 of the large 26-foot trucks and 6 16-foot trucks. So it takes 12 trucks to do all of the deliveries. We do normally rent them, but purchasing them we think would be a better option, and we would like to purchase the 3 big trucks. I'd like to show you some of the rental costs over the last few years. I think there's 9 years worth there. And you can see our budget and our actual expenditures, and most years we are over budget on that expense. It's very competitive to rent trucks, surprisingly so. The other counties that are renting at the same time to deliver their election equipment are competing for the trucks that are available. And also lately, FedEx and UPS have also been renting trucks from the truck rental companies. And so we often have to keep the trucks for a full month in order to know that we have them for the polls. We rent them for advance voting, and then we keep them for the whole month to make sure that we can always know that we have them. If you'll notice that in the FY 2020, or the FY 2020, we spent quite a bit more than twice as much on that year. Again, this is related to the number of components that are in the new voting system. So we had to rent more trucks than we normally did, and again, we had to keep them longer. So again, our thought is that we could purchase our own trucks and diminish this expense quite a bit, and they would pay for themselves after a few years. We could also turn them over to fleet when we're not using them, and they could have other departments also use those trucks. And this is my summary page. So everything's on here. Here's the summary of the projected budget that I'm putting forward. Again, the increase in the FY23 is primarily from the capital expense of more voting equipment, which is mandated when voting population grows. The rest of 23 increase is for the new positions I'm requesting. These new positions are needed to keep up with the increase in the number of registered voters. And finally, the increase in the FY24, although it is a significant number, it is mainly due to the number of elections in that year and the fact that it is a presidential election cycle, and we prepare for the presidential year in the FY24. With this higher workload, we're spending more money on staffing and other resources. And I'd just like to point out, if you'll notice in 21 and 22, the adopted budgets, they are the same each year. That's generally what we see when we get our budget approved. We don't have a light year and a heavy year like we really need. We get a flat budget, the same amount each year. So we tend to underspend on one year and overspend on another. So that's all I have for you. What questions do you have?
Thank you. Do commissioners have any questions? Yeah.
Positions that were recently approved, were they with ARP money or CARES Act money?
That was just the FY22 budget. That was our regular budget. Mm-hmm.
But that's an increase from 2021.
Yes,
If
you're
we added-
correct. You're correct. That was added into the 22. You're correct. I apologize.
Well, that's okay. I was wondering how we
This is the
funded them and they stayed the same
Well, again,
amount.
this is the adopted budget.
Okay.
So it
hasn't
changes throughout, yeah, I'm sorry,
been
go ahead.
spent. Okay.
Mhm.
A question with some of the new state requirements. Do all of the increases of costs to the county need to be borne by the county, or is the state helping to offset some of those costs? For instance, the new paper cost?
To my knowledge, no, the state is not offering to purchase any of the consumables or the paper and that sort of thing. We have been buying paper. It's 13 cents a sheet, so it is quite a lot of money to buy the numbers of paper that we require.
Okay. Thank you. I appreciate your presentation today. It's always informative. I know this has been a top priority to make sure that you do have the resources to help ensure we can have an active participation in voting, and also so that we can keep up with the standards and requirements of voting. And I think what you provided will help us to do both.
Thank you. I appreciate the board's support on a lot of what we've been asking for so far, and I thank you for your time and attention today.
Thank you.
For the sake of time, I'm going to close very quickly. No PowerPoint, no thing up there on the screen. Value statement very quickly, board. You know the increase of our residency, and if you ask what value does public service add to the county, people can call Cobb County their residents, but our public services give the county a sense of community. It's what connects people, and so your investment, and this may not necessarily be tangible in terms of roads or firefighters or officers, but it's sometimes unseen and hard to measure, but it does create a sense of community for our families. And that's a valuable investment when you think about our future. And moving forward, our total ask, we could have made this presentation very quick and just let me come up and say, give us $23,234,000 for 106 employees. That would have been the quickest way to do this. I like your smile, Commissioner Gamble. But that
Where's
is what,
the gong?
So that is what the total ask is for public services. So right around 23 million, 106 people for 6 agencies. I know you all have tough decisions. We respect that you have to go through this process. We are going to give you a binder with the details that's forthcoming. Each agency we'll put up all our stuff together in one binder that will be given to each commissioner. And we'll be available for questions as needed on a one-on-one basis. And I will say, if in final comment, in surveying each of the department heads, I did ask if they could have one thing, what would it be? And without fail, each one of them said, take care of the folks that have sacrificed and hope for better days by addressing the pay and the pay structure. If they could just have one thing, they want you to take care of the folks that have been here, dug in, and put in time. And I responded to them that the county manager, deputy county manager, they are leading the change on that with the pay class comp study. That is being addressed. And so I've told the team, hang in there. And for that reason, and because you have listened today, there is hope. Public services is very hopeful. They've been heard today. And so I'll close by saying thank you again. I know this has been like a college class. I remember being in class for 4 hours. And so we're right at, and we're public services. Public safety is bigger than us. So Randy will get me later. So without any other further questions, I'll be glad to answer. But Chairwoman, we are finished.
Thank you. Appreciate your time today. Thank you. With that, our work session is adjourned.